No matter how careful you are when shooting your video, there are always going to be times when your colors aren't quite right. Final Cut Pro has a couple of different tools to help you out with this. The first one we're going to look at is called Auto Balance. If you look inside the Color Demos folder, you'll see a project called Demo A. Go ahead and open that up, and as you can see in here, we have an outdoor shot of a couple of flowers on the patio. Now if you look closely at the color, you may realize that the color is just a little bit too warm, and that's because the camera auto white balanced for the scene a little bit incorrectly. This was shot in cold shade, and yet it tried to balance it as if it was in the warm sun. So let's see what happens if we correct for this. With the clip selected, you'll see a little menu here with a magic wand on it. This is the Enhance menu. If you pull that down, the first option is something called Balance Color. If you select that, your colors will automatically shift where Final Cut Pro tries to do its best to make those colors look natural. Now this is an on or off function. There's no adjusting done here. Final Cut Pro will analyze your clips automatically and determine what the best color is for them. If you don't like it, that's fine. Just go back up into this menu and turn it off again. There are also times when you have multiple shots side by side that don't quite look like they belong together. Maybe they were shot at a different time of day, or perhaps the lighting was just a little bit different between the two different angles. Final Cut Pro has a great tool to help with that as well. If you open up Demo B, you'll see in here two different shots from the same project. The first shot here is shot inside of the refrigerator, and then the second shot is shot outside, in the kitchen. Now the lighting doesn't quite match in here, and that's to be expected. The lighting out here was the lighting in the kitchen and some studio lights added in, and then the lighting inside the refrigerator is, well, a refrigerator light. So let's see if we can make these match. Matching in Final Cut Pro is incredibly simple. First, select the clip that you want to color match. So we'll start with this one here, the clip inside of the refrigerator. From the Enhance menu, choose Match Color. This will open an interface that shows the current clip and a window for the second one, the one you want to match from. Notice the instructions here say to skim any clip to a frame that has the color look you want to match. Any clip means you can even go through clips in your browser in here. But we're going to go ahead and skim across one that's already on the timeline. The shot that's in the kitchen, the next shot in the project. As I click on that shot, instantly the color is matched on the second clip. You can go ahead and cancel that if you don't like it, or click on Apply Match to apply it. And now we can see that the colors are matched between the two shots. Keep in mind that this can be a starting point, and you can continue to modify it from here using the more advanced color controls. Color matching in Final Cut Pro is incredibly powerful. Final Cut gives you a couple tools to make it very easy, but it also gives you the tools to take full control if you want to. Final Cut Pro can make your color corrections incredibly simple, but when you want to take full control over your color, you can do that too. Take a look inside the Color Demos folder and open up Demo C. In here you'll see two shots, a shot of the orange, followed by a shot of the flowers. Let's start with the orange shot. You can see that it looks pretty good here, but it's a little bit on the dark side. Let's start by seeing what Final Cut Pro can do automatically. From the Enhance menu, I'll choose Balance Color. Ooh, that really doesn't work out for this shot. As you can see, for some reason, Final Cut Pro has severely desaturated this orange and it just doesn't look good at all. So let's go ahead and turn that off. This is a shot that we're going to have to adjust manually. There's a couple different ways to get to the advanced color correction tools, but the easiest one is to go right down here and choose Show Color Board. Notice the keyboard shortcut is also Command 6. That can make getting to it quite a bit easier. Within the color board, you have three different main areas of control. You have color enhancements, saturation enhancements, and exposure. For this particular shot, all we really need to do is brighten it up a bit. Within the exposure control, you'll see four different balls that you can move. The first one is an overall exposure setting. If I drag that up and down, we can see very quickly that that's not quite going to do the job that we need. If you ever want to reset an adjustment, simply click on the curved arrow here to reset it back to its starting point. You can always go in here and just play with the sliders and see what's going to work. Is it the shadows I need to adjust, the midtones, or the highlights? And you can always just go back and forth and see what works best. Let's go ahead and reset that one more time. And for this particular shot, all I need to do is take the brightness and raise it up a little bit. And you can see with just a little bit of a change in there, the shot gets a lot brighter and a lot more appealing. Now that was a pretty simple color correction. Let's take a look at the next shot here, which is going to need quite a bit more work. Here we have a shot made outdoors in the shade, but the camera didn't quite color balance correctly. Now again, we can automate the process but in this case, let's take total control over it and see exactly what we can do. When you select the shot, it will automatically be loaded in the color board. And remember, you can always enable or disable that from this menu here. Let's start by looking at the colors for this shot. Here we have a full color rainbow, and what you're looking at is 4 different controls where you can add color, that's the plus on top, or take color away, that's to the minus on the bottom. The large ball here allows you to control colors for the entire scene, so I can add blues or greens or reds into the whole picture, or take those same colors away. Keep in mind that when you're adding blue, what you're really doing is taking away yellow. It really just depends on how you prefer to work. Let's go ahead and reset that. Now looking at this shot, it is definitely warm. That means I have too much information up here in the reddish, orangish, warm areas. So I need to get rid of some of that. Do I want to work with the shadows, with the midtones, or with the highlights, or do I want to work with everything at once? We'll just take this little ball and start moving it away from the reds and the oranges. Now notice the way that these controls work. No matter where the ball is on the line, if it's just horizontally moved, no color change is made to the image at all. The only color change happens when you move this up or down. So it doesn't really matter where along the line you put this ball. All that matters is where you put it above or below the line. So again, for this shot, we want to get rid of some of the warm. And I think right about there actually looks pretty good. Now if you want to get into a little bit more advanced controls, you can do that as well. Let's take the shadows, for example, and maybe just add a little bit of coolness back into the shadows. So I'm going to start pushing those towards blue. A little bit too much. Let's pull that back again. If you want to make fine adjustments to any of these, simply select the dot, and then using the arrows on your keyboard, you can move it up or down, left or right. This shot's looking better now, but I think it still looks a little bit flat. Let's go to the exposure area, take our shadows, and make those a little bit darker. By simply grabbing the shadow ball here, I can drop that down and make the shadows darker and darker and darker until I get the look that I want. Now, that's a little bit too far. Let's bring it back up again. And what we've done here is made a really high contrast, very rich looking image. The overall scene feels a little bit too dark now, so I'm going to take my bright spots and just raise them up a bit. You can see that we're getting very contrasty here, and perhaps a little bit too much, so maybe I should back off from the shadows a little bit. Take the highlights back down just a touch, and that's a pretty cool look. Now this may not be a natural look, but this is the look that I'm after here. And that's the beauty of color control. You can make the scene look like anything you want. Think of some of the movies that you've seen, how they can look very dark and green or very warm and faded. All of those looks can be applied and created inside of Final Cut Pro. It's up to you. So far, we've only applied a single color correction to this video clip, when in fact you can apply multiple corrections to the same clip. If you go to the top left corner of the adjustment board, you'll notice in here that you have full control over all the different effects that you can apply to your clip. Here's the color controls at the top. Notice as well that if you had applied the auto color balance or the match color effect, those would both be enabled here. But here's the one that we've been working with, correction 1. If I want to turn that off, I can do that by simply clicking on the blue dot there. I can easily preview the before and after by simply clicking that little dot. But I can also add another color correction on top of the existing one. To do that, simply click on the little color ball here with the plus on it. This will add a second color correction, and to adjust that, click on the arrow next to its name. This will open up a whole second color correction area that you can continue to adjust to add color effects on top of the ones you've already built. To remove any of those, simply go back, select the color correction, and hit the delete key on your keyboard. As you can see, there's incredibly advanced color capabilities inside of Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro includes a series of color presets that you can use as they are, or use as starting points. It's also a great way to learn how to color. For this demo, go into the Color Demos folder and open Demo C. We're going to work with the shot of the flowers. If you already have a color correction applied to this clip, reset that first. To reset it, simply click on the inspector, make sure that you have the video tab selected, and then here under Color, where it says Correction 1, click the Reset button. To get to the presets, click on the arrow on the Color Correction 1 tab. This is where we have all the controls over our exposure, saturation, and color. However, in the bottom right corner, you'll see a gear menu. When you click on it, a whole list of presets are in here of different color corrections that have already been saved. Go ahead and select any one of them, and you'll see immediately the correction that's applied to the image. You can just go ahead and skip through these and find a few different ones, see how they all look, and look for something that might be close to the effect that you want to achieve. Now, the great thing about this is, again, it's a great way to learn. Let's go back to this Alien Lab one. Let's say that you really like this look and you want to learn how to create this on your own. Now, by going through the 3 different tabs, color, saturation, and exposure, you can study exactly how that effect was created. And of course, you can modify it as well. Maybe I don't want it to be quite this high contrast, so let's go ahead and take the highlights down a little bit and lift the shadows a touch. The colors are a little bit too dark. Let's go into the saturation and take our highlights up just a touch as well. There we go. That's the look that I want. So, go back to the gear menu, and now choose Save Preset. Call it whatever you like. My new preset. Click OK. It'll now be saved to the list. By the way, if you'd like to know where these presets are saved so that you can share them with a friend or a colleague, I'll show you. Switch over to the Finder and open up the Movies folder. Inside of that, you'll see your Final Cut Events folder, and inside of that, your color presets. There's the preset we just created, my new preset. You can easily copy this over to any other system that you need, or share it with your friends, or simply put it up on your website for others to download. The presets in Final Cut Pro are a great way to learn. Start from there, figure out how the work was done, and before no time, you'll be a color master yourself. Your movie is never really done until you have music and sound effects applied. A very smart man once said, "You don't watch a movie, you listen to a movie." Open up the Sound Demos folder and locate Demo Project A. We're looking at the beginning of our movie here. I'm going to go ahead and play through this, and you'll see where we need to add some music.
Cups away because we're doing this without measuring.
Here we have our title sequence built, but there's no music. We're going to add some.
First, we beat in 2 eggs.
Inside of Final Cut Pro, you have a built-in Music and Sounds browser. This allows you to go through the library that's included with Final Cut, as well as some other sounds that are on your system. Let's have a look. First of all, you'll see Final Cut Pro sound effects listed here. And if you open that up, you'll see categories like ambience, animals, explosions, and so on. And by the way, if you don't see this in yours, you may have just installed Final Cut Pro 10 and not yet run Software Update. Go up to the Final Cut Pro menu and choose Download Additional Content. This will check the Apple servers and see if there's any new content that you can download. Once you have that installed, you can go through here and sample any one of these by simply double-clicking on it or selecting it and tapping the play button. That's a Foley sound effect for footsteps. Let's take a look at what else is in here. We have some mechanical or technical sounds like motors, various people sounds like crowds, sci-fi sounds like drone dark suspense. Let's see what that one sounds like. As you can see, there's quite a variety in here. If you're an iLife user, you'll find that you also have access to your iLife sound effects library. There's some overlap in here, but there's quite a few different ones as well. For example, in here you have the jingle selection. These can be very handy for opening titles. And in fact, the opening title sound that I'm going to use comes out of the iLife library. If you keep on scrolling down, you'll see that you also have access to your GarageBand library. If you're a GarageBand user and you've created your own music or custom jingles, you'll be able to locate those in here. You also have access to your iTunes library, but be careful using music from here. While it's okay to use it for home movies that you're only going to show to your friends, keep in mind that you can't upload any commercial music to any sites like YouTube or Vimeo. Let's go ahead and locate one of the built-in jingles. Again, I'm choosing something out of the iLife sound effects library called Vino. If you have the iLife sound effects installed, you can go ahead and search for that one and follow along with that. Otherwise, just locate any other music out of your iTunes library and drag that one in. Here's my Vino sound. Let's check it out. I think this is going to be perfect for the opening title sequence. To add this to the project, all you have to do is click and drag it onto your timeline. You can position it wherever you like, and I'm going to go ahead and position it right underneath the beginning of my titles. Let's see what that looks like.
Doing this without measuring. First, we beat it.
It sounds perfect, but as you can see, or hear, the sound's a little bit too long in there, and it's covering over the next sequence, so we need to shorten that up a little bit. Let's go ahead and scroll past here and look for the end of that. Quite long of a clip there. And we'll just click on it and drag it back to shorten it up. At some point, you have to decide where you want the music to actually end. Do I have it end right at the end of the title sequence? Let's see what that would look like.
First, we...
Not very clean. What I really want is to have it simply transition out or fade out over her dialogue, but we have to make sure we don't obscure any of her words. Let's go ahead and just make this a little bit longer. But then to fade it out, you'll notice over here that there's a small little button that shows up as you run the mouse over the edge of this, and if you tap at just the right place and click back, you'll see that you have the ability to fade your music out over time. Let's listen again.
First, we beat in 2 eggs.
Perfect. As you can see, it's incredibly easy to add music to your project, and then even easier to just fade it out over time or fade it back in. Let's try a sound effect now. If you scrub a little bit farther down this project, you'll see that we have a shot of this burner being ignited. Now, as you can hear, you can't really hear the flames in there. Let's fix that. If I go up here to my music library, go all the way to the top to the Final Cut Pro sound effects, I can search in here for any of the sounds, and I'm going to search for one called fire. Now you'll see that there's quite a few different results for fire in here. The one that I want is Fire 1. Let's hear what it sounds like. That's a pretty big roaring fire, but chances are it'll work out quite well for my burning flame here. Let's go ahead and add that to the project. Simply drag and drop it onto the timeline. And don't worry about where it goes quite yet, just drop it on there. Let's see what it sounds like with that burning flame behind the burner. Now, we do need to line it up, but if you look at the waveform here for this audio file, you can see that it very slowly climbs up. It gets louder and louder, and that's probably not going to really work. We want that sound to come on hard as soon as the flames ignite. So let's just trim up the beginning here a little bit. Right about so. And slide that into place. Now, where do we slide this to? How do we know exactly where it goes? Well, an easy way to do that is to simply take the playhead, scrub it over the video, and find the point where you want your sound to begin. Let's just find the place where those flames are just about fully ignited. Let's say right about there. And then I'll take my sound file and drag it back to line up with the playhead. Now let's see what it sounds like. Perfect. As you can see, adding custom sounds to your project is easy and a lot of fun, and it makes a huge difference to how your movie comes across. If you're including dialogue or other audio recorded on camera in your video project, chances are that your dialogue could use a little bit of help from some of the filters built into Final Cut Pro. For this demo, we'll be using 2 demo projects, Demo B and Demo C, both located inside the Sound Demos folder. Both of these projects have the exact same video, but Demo B has just the on-camera audio with it, where Demo C has been synchronized with audio recorded on a separate device. Let's listen to both of them. This is on-camera audio.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
And here's audio recorded with another device and then synchronized to the original video.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
You can hear a dramatic difference, but neither one is great, so let's go ahead and start with Demo B and go from there. Let's listen to this again, but pay close attention to what's actually wrong with this dialogue.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
There's 2 main things going on. First of all, we can very clearly hear a lot of background noise. And second, the dialogue sounds a bit distant and far away. Listen again.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
So let's see what we can do with Final Cut Pro using this on-camera audio. With the clip selected, click on the I button to open the inspector. If audio is not already selected, select it up here at the top. As you scroll down, you'll see that there's an audio enhancement section, and under that you have equalization and audio analysis options. Now notice that this one has a green check next to it, and it says no problems detected. Depending on your audio, you may see a yellow triangle there saying that problems have been found. Either way, you have access to the exact same tools to clean up your dialogue. Click on the little arrow to the right of that, and that'll open up 3 different tools that we can use: the loudness tool, the background noise removal, and the hum removal. Hum removal is very specific. It removes a frequency at 50 Hz or 60 Hz that generally comes from electrical plugs. You can see the icon here telling you where it comes from. Whether you choose 50 or 60 just depends on where your audio is recorded. Background noise is a pretty common problem. This can come from fans or just any other kind of noise in the room. This can be easily removed, but often the dialogue suffers, so there's a fine balancing act that we have to find, and we're going to work with this one. At the top of that, we have loudness. Loudness allows us to quite simply make the audio louder. We're going to work with that one in Demo C. Let's go back to background noise removal. Let's play this again.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and by default it's set to 50%. Let's just leave it there and see how it sounds.
My name is Alenka, and I would love to share a special recipe with you today.
You can immediately hear that a lot of the background hiss has been removed. However, the dialogue starts to take on a kind of a strange, distant, almost underwater sound to it. You can slide the slider back and forth and hear how that affects your dialogue. You can usually hear it in real time, but if you're not hearing the change while you drag the slider, simply stop playback and start it up again immediately.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka, and I would love to share a special recipe with you today.
As you can hear, the higher I get, the less of that background audio there is. However, the more underwater the voice sounds. Usually the right place to be is somewhere in the middle. Let's try this.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka, and I would love to share a special recipe with you today.
For this particular shot, somewhere between 35 and 40% sounds pretty good. We've gotten rid of a lot of that background noise. Not all of it, but a good amount of it, and the dialogue doesn't sound too underwater. I think this works pretty well.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka, and I would love to share a special recipe with you today.
If you go back to the Audio Enhancements tab, you'll notice again that we have the equalization. By default, it's set to flat, but if you pull this down, you'll see a series of different presets that you can choose from. Let's try the Voice Enhance preset and see how that sounds.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka.
Sounds pretty good, but we can also see that the dialogue has gotten a little bit too loud. If you look down here on the timeline, you'll see that the waveform is showing us a bit of a yellow and then even a red area where it's peaking and clearly getting too loud. So we'll probably need to take that down a little bit. We can do that by simply grabbing on this line here and dragging it down. As you can see, we can drop it all the way down to silent or bring it up to so loud that it blows out all the audio. We obviously don't want to do that. So we'll find just the right threshold, let's say right about there, and see how that sounds.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka, and I would love to
It's sounding pretty good, but if you want to enhance this even further, you can work on this manually. If you go to the Equalization tab again, notice that you have a little EQ icon here, and if you click that, you'll see your 10-band graphic equalizer. If you're familiar with working with EQs, you can completely tweak the dialogue to sound exactly how you want it. And in fact, if 10 bands isn't enough for you, you can switch over to a 31-band equalizer as well. So that's a pretty good result with a dialogue that was recorded on camera. But of course, we're going to get even better results if we listen to the dialogue that was recorded on a separate audio device. Let's go ahead and open up Demo C now. Let's listen to this.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka, and I would love to share a special recipe with you today.
As you can hear, the audio is much cleaner, very little to no background noise at all. However, it's also rather quiet. If you were noticing here that you have audio level meters, they weren't really bouncing that high.
A special recipe with
And if you want to get a closer look at these, just tap on them once and it'll open up the audio level meters to the right of the timeline.
you today. Hello, and welcome to my
Notice that the dialogue is mostly peaking between -20 and -12. Yet where we really want it to be peaking is somewhere between -6 and 0. We don't want to go above 0. That's considered clipping and usually sounds very bad. So we want to stay somewhere underneath that, but we do want to get the dialogue louder than it is now. We've already seen that I could simply take this line here and raise the levels of the dialogue. Let's try that out.
And I would love to share a special recipe with you today. Hello.
That sounds a lot better, but there's probably more that we could do to it. Let's just go ahead and hit undo to bring that level back to 0. Select that clip and go back into the Audio Enhance dialog. You've already seen how you can alter the equalization, but let's go back into the Audio Analysis tab and take a look at one of the tools that we have in here. Earlier I pointed at the loudness slider. We're going to use loudness on this particular clip. If I select it by default, it's probably going to choose 40% volume and 6% uniformity. What the amount slider controls is how much louder it's going to be. What the uniformity slider controls is how much of the dialogue or how much of that sound is going to be risen. If we go too high, we're going to find that all the audio, including all the background noise, is going to get raised as well. So again, it's a balancing act. Trying to find just the right position for these sliders so that the audio sounds great. Let's take the uniformity down a bit and the amount up and hear what we've got.
And I would love to share a special recipe with you today. Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
Again, if you're watching the meters here on the right, you'll see that our dialogue is in fact going somewhere between -6 and 0, so that's great. We have included just a little bit more background noise in there. We could try and remove that with the background noise removal, or by simply going back to the equalizer and working on it there. It's all up to you. Just depends on what you're comfortable with, and of course the audio quality of the clips that you recorded in the first place. As you can see, there are a lot of different tools that you have access to inside of Final Cut Pro for making your audio sound even better than it did when it came off the camera.